let's do problem number 23. And it is also on page 589. So let's get a blank screen. And we're working on problem 23. So problem 23, as you can see from your book, it reads 2x squared minus 6x minus 36 divided by 2x minus 12 equals. Okay, so let me write the problem out, and then we're going to show you how we're going to do this. However, the first thing I want you to notice is that you see everything in the numerator and the denominator divides by 2. The 2x squared divides by 2. How would you read that? Well, x squared and x squared is 2x squared. And you can see the minus 6x minus 36, the 2x, and the negative 12 all divide by 2. So that's the first thing I want you to know. Let's write the problem out. So it is 2x squared negative 6x. And I apologize for writing so small sometimes. I have a big enough screen I can write larger. Okay. And it's probably easier on me using this device to write with. Divided by 2x. Wow. So the first step is notice that every term divides by 2. And so the second step is to simplify these terms as they divide by 2. So the 2x squared term right here will become, and let's just put our division here, x squared and 6x divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We know that. So that will become a negative 3x. And 36 divided by 2, we know. But that's a negative 36, so it'll be a negative what? 18. Now, let me mention something here so you'll understand. Just like when we're multiplying a negative times a positive times a positive, so a negative 1 times a positive 3, the result would equal what? A negative answer. See? It would be negative 3. Anytime you multiply what we're illustrating, so you can understand what we're doing in the problem. Anytime you multiply a negative times a positive, the answer will be negative. Anytime you multiply a negative times a negative, the answer will be positive. This is important. And a positive, you can show the sign or not. Okay? So we're going to show the sign, but on a positive number, you can show the plus 3 or leave the plus off. If it doesn't have the sign, the number is positive. Now, when you're dividing, same rules apply. A negative divided by a positive will end up being a negative. Okay? And a negative divided by a negative will end up being a positive. Okay, so that's why we illustrate this so you can see and understand. So let's continue with the problem. And we said what we were doing, first thing we did was we noticed that all the terms in the problem is divisible by 2. And so we're going to simplify by dividing it by 2. So we simplified the numerator so far. Let's now simplify the denominator, which is here. 2x minus 12. We're going to simplify this, right? Okay. So 2x, which means you have an x and an x that make up that term. So to simplify it would be x. Remember, we said every term divided by 2. And then you have a 12 in the denominator of the original problem, right? Right here. I'm just making them all so you can see where I am. And of course, 12 divided by 2 is 6. So you have a negative 6. So that's a negative 12 divided by 2. So that's what your problem looked like now. Let me just show you where we are, and then I'll go down a little further. So this is the problem now, the way it looks. Okay? That's what we're working with. X squared minus 3x minus 18 divided by x minus 6. Okay, let's see if I can get rid of that red thing. Let's continue. I'm just trying to make this so simple and illustrate everything so you can see what we're doing step by step. All right, so that's the problem now. And I know I took off a little bit of my 18. Let's see if we can put it back. Yep, there we go. Okay, so let's continue with the problem. So now we've simplified it. The next thing is to factor the numerator. So step 3, factor the numerator. This is the numerator, the terms that are up here. Okay, we know in a fraction, the top part of a fraction is the numerator, and the bottom part of a fraction is denominator. Okay, numerator on the top, denominator on the bottom. So the next step in this problem, what do we do next? We will factor the numerator, the top portion. Okay, x squared minus 3x minus 18. Let's go ahead and factor that. Let's get me eraser. And I might need the space over here as well. And let's grab a pen. So, equal. And to factor, we're going to put our brackets. Okay, so what we're going to do is factor the numerator, which means we're going to go ahead and bring the denominator over, which is x minus 6. Okay, now that we have the problem set up, let's go ahead and factor. So what is factor? What we're trying to do is factor, let me get a red pen so you can see, the top portion of the division, which is the numerator. We're factoring these terms. In other words, what makes up an x squared? Well, you see I'm right here. What makes up an x squared? And we said when you have an exponent of 2, that means something times something else, itself, x times x. So x and x makes up x squared. So then we have 2 x's, all right? So let's put that in the factor to the right. Let's add that in the brackets. There's an x, and there's an x here. So we just factored the first term of the numerator. X squared is 2 x's. X and x is x squared. All right, so then we come back and we're going to factor the middle term. So how do we do that? Well, what you're going to do is this. You're going to find a factor by finding two numbers added together that gives you the middle term, which is a minus 3 or a negative 3x. So add two numbers together that give you a negative 3x. Now, when I multiply those same two numbers, it must give me the last term, which is a negative 18. I know it sounds confusing, but don't worry. Remember, we're going to illustrate it, and you can rewind it as much. So how do we factor the middle term? We find two numbers. When we add those two numbers together, they give us the middle term, a negative 3x. But we take those same two numbers and we multiply them. They must give us the third term, the negative 18. So here, we could do this. We could say, okay, what two numbers? Well, we could go a plus 1 and a negative 4 would give us a negative 3. Yeah, that would be a negative 3. Plus 1, negative 4 is equal to a negative 3. But when I go 1 times 4, does it equal a negative 18? No, it does not. So those two terms, those two numbers will not fit. 1 and 4 will not, a plus 1, negative 4, it will not fit. Because when we add them together, yes, it gives me a negative 3. But when I multiply, it does not give me the last term, which is a negative 18. Okay, so let's try two other numbers. Let's try, and these are the actual numbers that I'm going to do this time. I just want to illustrate and show you. So let's try a negative 6 and a plus 3, a positive 3. All right? So now, when I say I have a negative 6 and a plus 3, that equals a negative 3. Negative 6, I'm right here, and a positive 3 equals a negative 3. So those two numbers, when I add them together, they give me the middle term right here, a negative 3. Now, when I multiply a negative 6 times a positive 3, does it give me the last term? Yes, it does. Negative 6 times 3 equals a negative 18. Okay, I have my two numbers that I need. These two numbers will work for the middle term, and it also gives me the last term. So we know those numbers work. So let's plug it into the factor. Negative 6 and a plus 3. Now, we just factored the middle term and the last term. So, we just factored the numerator. And you can see a negative 6 plus a positive 3 gives me the middle term, negative 3x right here. Okay? We did that. Now, 6 negative times a plus 3 gives me the last term right here, a negative 18. 3 times 6 is 18. So now that we've factored the numerator, what do we do next? Well, the last step is just to cancel out. And then you keep what's left. So what can be canceled? Well, I see an x negative 6 in the numerator, and I see an x negative 6 in the denominator. So we can cancel those. And what are we left with? We'll put the sign here. Equal. I like blue because red I use for correction. So what are we left with? The only thing left is x plus 3. This is your answer. Okay, you have any questions? Feel free to rewind it, look at what we did. That's how you work that problem. Let's move on to the next problem. Okay, so let's continue with the next problem, which is problem number 24 on page 589 from your GED book. So let's erase this. And the next problem is 24. Page 589. So, question number 24, it reads, customers of Paul's Beauty Supply can make purchases online from a catalog or in the store. And then they give you a chart. That's why I told you having the book is important. You need to be able to see what I'm illustrating or what I'm saying. It's illustrated in your book. So they give you a chart, and on that chart it shows the sales. Online sales, catalog sales, in-store sales. The question asks, about how much more did the company make from catalog sales than from online sales in March? Okay, well, what you're going to do for this particular problem, you can see they made about $130,000 from catalog sales, and about $65,000 was made from online sales. Subtract the $65,000 from the $130,000. That's it. This is the easy one. Okay, so we're going to set it up and just show you. Simple. We just want to know the difference. $130,000 that were made from catalog sales. And about $65,000 from online sales. And of course, once you subtract that, your answer is $65,000. So the answer choice should be B. That's all they want to know, the difference between catalog and online sales. And you can see it and estimate it right there on the graph that they gave you. Okay, that's the end of question 24. Your answer is $65,000.